ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
Since this is Bhagavad Gita for everyone, I don't assume that everybody who follows this course have the same amount of pre-knowledge. Therefore, I thought it'd be a good idea to put the Bhagavad Gita on the literary world map, as well as putting it on a timeline. Let's start by putting it on the literary world map. The first thing we can say about the Bhagavad Gita is that it's a philosophical treatise that is respected all over the world. In any intellectual circles, in any university or spiritual group, the Bhagavad Gita is respected. Number two, it's one of the most important scripture for Hindus. Number three, it's one of the foundational book for Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas are a group within Hinduism that worships Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu. They are the same person, or Lord Rama, as the highest God, as the source of everything. So Vaishnavism has millions and millions of followers within India and also outside of India. Number four, it's one of the principal authorities on yoga, as it explains the yoga system to a great extent. And number five, it's known as the ABC of spirituality. Bhagavad Gita is one chapter of the great Indian epic, the Mahabharata. Maha means the great, Bharat means India. So it's an epic about the great India and the different family dynasties. So Bhagavad Gita, or the Song of God, is often read on its own because it's purely philosophical or spiritual in content. Vedic scriptures are considered either to be Shruti or Smriti. Shruti means what has been heard, so that is revealed scriptures, and they are thought to have come directly from a divine source. In Sanskrit, they say that they are apaurushaya. They don't come from human source, they are suprahuman. So Shrutis are what has been directly heard. Smriti means what has been remembered, and this is remembrance by the sages. So what the sages remember, and then it's retold. Bhagavad Gita is considered to be both a Smriti and Shruti. Smriti because it's part of the Mahabharata, what the sages have remembered. And Shruti because the words come from the mouth of God himself. So it's directly from a divine source. Also, Mahabharata is known to be Itihasya. Itihasya means thus happened. So the Mahabharata claims to be historical, thus happened. And the author of all Vedas and both Shruti and Smriti is said to be Veda Vyas. And according to what I have understood is that there can be different Veda Vyas in different ages, different persons or different incarnations of the Lord who takes this position of having this seva, this service of writing down the Vedas. In this instance, it was Krishna Dvaipana Vyas. Now let's move into the topic of dating the Bhagavad Gita. There are many different opinions on how old Bhagavad Gita is. It's a vast and sensitive topic. Within Western academia, which does not only mean Westerners, but it means modern universities that have originated in the West, history of religion, Indology, linguistics, there has been many attempts on dating the Bhagavad Gita, and generally the scholars come up with the theory that Bhagavad Gita is about 2,500 years old. But within the tradition, different methods are used, and they often date Bhagavad Gita to 5,000 years. So how is this possible that there's such a vast gap between what the scholars of the modern universities say and what the scholars within the tradition say? So we're going to have a look at the different methods, the different methodologies that are used by these different two groups. So let's start within Western academia. From what I know, one of the main ways that has been used is linguistics. So by comparing the meters and the concepts and the words used in the different Upanishadic scriptures and other scriptures, they try to find out, where concepts are borrowed, or they try to understand the time when they were written, and they can compare it also to maybe inscriptions on temple walls, or what they know about the cultural and social political lives during a specific ruler in India. So the critique against this method is that it's quite speculative. Everything depends on something else. It's a coherenteristic epistemology. They try to find out the truth by building kind of a net. The insiders to the tradition, they're trying to find a safe starting point when they try to find out how old Bhagavad Gita is. Foundational epistemology, and one method that they have used extensively is astronomy. As Mahabharata is an itihasya, and we mentioned before, itihasya means does happen. It is a scripture that claims to be historical. So before big events or key events, the writer often gives the date by explaining where they were in the lunar calendar when this happened, and other different constellation of the stars. In the case of Mahabharata, we know that Krishna's brother Balaram, he did not want to take part in the war because he wanted to remain neutral. The war was between two cousin groups, right? So he chose to remain neutral. So he decided to go on a pilgrimage instead of participating as a warrior. So in India, in the ancient Vedic tradition, anytime you do something of importance, spiritual importance, you check to start it on an auspicious astrological moment. So did Balaram. So it's explained when he went on the pilgrimage, and he went for 45 days on the pilgrimage, and within these 45 days the war was fought, and the war was fought for 18 days. So astronomers tried to find out the exact date when Lord Balaram set off on his pilgrimage, and that will be quite a good indicator from when the war started. And they have concluded around 5,000 years ago. As I already mentioned, archaeology is key to finding more clues to when this happened, and both scholars, Western scholars and insiders, they use archaeology. And India is huge, but it has not been so much excavated, because to make archaeological excavation costs a lot of money. You need somebody to fund, and we know that funding can be hard to get, and that it's also quite political who gets the funding, right? So after being colonized both by the British and before that by the Mongols, India was left very poor, and during the Mongol colonization, a lot of temples had been smashed into pieces. So now, as India's economy is growing, the first emphasis has been on building present-day society, right? But then the second one has been on rebuilding the temples that were smashed to pieces. And archaeology might be the third priority, but doubtlessly there's a lot to be found in India, because it's an ancient civilization. And actually already a city outside Dwarka has been found under seas. So according to the scriptures, Krishna's city where he lived with his queen sunk to the sea. So present-day Dwarka is in the state of Gujarat in India, and actually they have found an old city outside of Dwarka in the Arabian Sea. Whether this is Krishna's city or not, we don't know. And I also could not find so much information on how much excavation has been done there. It will be interesting to find out more. And if you know something, leave a comment down below if you have some interesting link or something that we can find out more about whether this city is the city of Dwarka or not. And another new, very important science is the one of genetics that can give us huge clues on how humans have moved across continents and the lands, and also how they have procreated. And this, both sides are for sure using this new science and this new knowledge to understand how the Indian civilization was built up, and whether people came from outside India to India, or whether people have migrated from India outside. And this is also, as we know, it's a very political topic and sensitive topic. So it will be interesting to follow and see. We will get more input into this debate and into this important question. It's important, but for us still it's not that important, because we are testing the spiritual value of the Bhagavad Gita. We are learning about the teachings, the timeless teachings, and we are testing them in our lives. I will go on the insider theory that Bhagavad Gita is 5,000 years old because of the astronomical calculations, also because the generations, the genealogy is actually calculated. Say this was handed to this person, who gave it to that person and to that person. So you can also count the generations. Then of course it comes to the question, how long do you consider a generation to be? 30 years, 20 years? So this is also a topic to discuss and an issue to solve. Another scripture that can give us a clue is the Surya Siddhanta, which tells us when Kali Yuga, this time age, started. Because when Krishna left this planet, that is when Kali Yuga is said to have started. So there are many, many clues. But for us, we are more interested in the content of the Bhagavad Gita. Obviously, Bhagavad Gita states that it was spoken during the Kurukshetra war. But more than that, Krishna says something very interesting about the knowledge he shares. He says that this spiritual knowledge is given by him to human society again and again, and that he had actually spoken this before to the sun god. Let's read from chapter 4, verse 1 to 5, and let's read what Krishna says. The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivashvan, and Vivashvan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. This supreme science was thus received through the chain of the cyclic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and I can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. Arjuna said, the sun god Vivashvan is senior by birth to you. How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructed this science to him? The personality of Godhead said, many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy. So Krishna says that he passed on this knowledge, the science of yoga, to the sun god. So let's see now. Let's read from one purport to verse 1 in chapter 4, and Prabhupada will explain something more. At the present moment, we have just passed through 5,000 years of the Kali Yuga, which lasts 432,000 years. Before this, there was Dwapar Yuga, 800,000 years, and before that, there was Treta Yuga, 1,200,000 years. Thus, some 2,005,000 years ago, Manu spoke the Bhagavad Gita to his disciple and son, Maharaj Ikshvaku, the king of this planet Earth. The age of the current Manu is calculated to last some 305,300,000 years, of which 120,400,000 years have passed, accepting that before the birth of Manu, the Gita was spoken by the Lord to his disciple, the sun god Vivasvan. A rough estimate is that the Gita was spoken at least 120,400,000 years ago, and in human society it has been extant for 2 million years. It was respoken by the Lord again to Arjuna about 5,000 years ago. That is the rough estimate of the history of the Gita, according to the Gita itself and according to the version of the speaker, Lord Sri Krishna. It was spoken to the sun god Vivasvan because he is also Kshatriya and the father of all Kshatriyas who are descendants of the sun god, or the Surya Vamsya Kshatriyas. Because Bhagavad Gita is as old as the Vedas, being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this knowledge is aparosheya, it's superhuman. Since the Vedic instructions are accepted as they are without human interpretation, the Gita must therefore be accepted without mundane interpretation. The mundane wrangles may speculate on the Gita in their own ways, but that is not Bhagavad Gita as it is. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita has to be accepted as it is from the disciplic succession, and it is described herein that the Lord spoke to the sun god spoke to his son Manu, and Manu spoke to his son Ikshvaku.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare